Welcome to the Signals Atlas. Here, we map the hidden forces that shape market value and rare skills. Today, we're dissecting one of the most powerful and, frankly, one of the most misunderstood levers in the entire skills market: communication.
And that brings us to our central question, one you've probably seen play out in your own career. Why does the person with strong communication skills so often out-earn the specialist who might actually be producing more, but explaining less? It seems backward, right? But this isn't about office politics or being charismatic. This is about skill market physics.
So let's dive right in. The first thing we have to do is isolate the signal that the market is sending us. And, it's deeply counterintuitive. It's a signal that puts the act of explaining in direct competition with the act of producing. Now, the common belief, what we're all sort of taught, is that your value is based on your output: the code you ship, the report you write, the thing you build. But the signal from the market tells a very different story. It says that market value is actually based on the explanation of that output. The ability to take something complex and turn it into a clear, compelling story, that's where the real value gets captured.
And what's so fascinating is that this signal isn't just a fluke. Once you see it, you start to see the pattern absolutely everywhere. It doesn't matter the industry, doesn't matter the role, it's the same invisible force playing out again and again.
Okay, so take the technologist. You've got a brilliant engineer, right? They build some game-changing piece of software, but their value often has a ceiling. And then you have the leader who can stand up in front of the board or the investors and explain why it matters, how it's going to reshape the market. The person who explains, not just the person who builds, is the one who often reaps the biggest rewards.
And we see this exact same dynamic with the analyst. Someone spends weeks, maybe months, digging through data to find one crucial insight. But that insight is just a number on a page until someone else, very often a consultant, comes along and frames it. They build a strategic narrative around that data, and in doing so, they command the premium price.
This might be the best illustration of all: the world of startups. I mean, business history is just littered with the wreckage of technically superior products that failed. And why? Because a competitor, maybe with a clunkier product, simply told a better story. They pitched a more compelling vision, they got the funding, they attracted the talent. The better explanation won, not the better code. So, if the signal is explanation over production, and we see this pattern everywhere, what's actually driving it? Why does this happen? Well, it turns out there are three fundamental levers of value at work here. These three levers are: 1, controlling the flow of resources; 2, multiplying the perception of competence; and 3, fundamentally outpricing pure production. Let's break down exactly what that means. All right, first up, allocation power. See, explaining something well isn't just about clarity, it's about control. The person who can best define a problem becomes the central node that resources have to flow through. They get to decide on the budget, the team, the whole direction. So while the producers are busy creating value, the explainers are the ones deciding where that value actually goes.
The second lever is all about cognitive ease. Think about it. Markets always reward people who reduce friction. When you present a really complex idea with absolute clarity, you make your audience, your boss, your client, whoever, feel smarter. Ambiguity just creates more work and uncertainty. Clarity builds trust and allows for speed. And that trust translates directly into a premium on your competence. You get more responsibility, your ideas get approved faster.
And this third lever, well, this is maybe the most powerful of all: scale. A producer's output scales in a straight line. You put in one more hour, you get one more hour of value out. But persuasion scales exponentially. A single, well-crafted explanation can align the work of 100 engineers for an entire year. It influences tons of producers all at once, and in doing so, it captures a piece of the value from all their combined output. That's how explainers economically outprice producers. Understanding these mechanisms is absolutely critical, because if you misunderstand them, the cost is steep. For really skilled, hardworking people, ignoring this signal leads you straight into what we call the producer's trap. And this trap, it has a lot of different faces. It's the specialist who's the best in the world at what they do, but they can't articulate their value, so they stay underpaid. It's the incredibly hard worker who's seen as just a replaceable cog because their effort isn't tied to a clear strategic story. They're all caught in the same loop, confusing the effort they put in with the value the market assigns. And let's be really, really clear here.
This is not a failure of intelligence. It is not a failure of work ethic. It is a failure to read the market signals correctly. It's about having a capability that is fundamentally mispriced because it isn't being signaled effectively. So, how do you get out of the trap? What's the edge that high-income people have? Well, it isn't a list of tactics or some new productivity hack. It is a fundamental core shift in perception about where value actually comes from. It really boils down to two mindsets. On one side, you've got the producer mindset, which says, my work is great, it should speak for itself. This is basically a passive hope that someone will notice. On the other side is the explainer mindset. My explanation is what gives my work its value. This is an active strategy for creating and assigning value to your own output. This is the entire shift, right here. It's about recategorizing communication in your head. It's not a soft skill you use to be clear. It is a hard-edged, strategic tool. It is the lever you pull to create economic leverage, to control how resources flow, and to scale your own impact far beyond what you alone can produce. Now, we're not going to end with a nice summary or a to-do list. Instead, we're going to end by turning this analysis back on you. Because the only way to know if you're caught in the producer's trap is to really examine your own signal in the market. So ask yourself 3 very sharp questions. First, who understands you? And I don't just mean your direct boss. Who in your company, in your industry, in your market, truly gets the value you create and why it's important? If that circle of people is small, your leverage is small. Second, how clear are you? Seriously, when you explain what you do or what you're working on, are you making things easier for other people? Are you reducing their cognitive load and making them feel smarter? Are you just adding to the noise, forcing them to work hard just to get your point? And finally, this is the ultimate test of leverage. Who convinces for you? Is your explanation, is your story so clear and so compelling that other people are repeating it when you are not in the room? When your colleagues and your allies are advocating for your ideas on your behalf, that's when you know you've successfully scaled your persuasion. That is the signal of true economic leverage.